Well, hello and welcome. It's been 2 weeks, that's too long, 2 weeks since we've done a Transform Tuesday, so I figured it was about time. And in fact, today's Transform Tuesday is literally about time. You see what I did there? That's probably the best joke you're going to get. It took me all morning to come up with this, but today we're going to be talking about time fields and how to manipulate time. Hello, welcome to another Transform Tuesday. I'm Dave McCormick, VP of Products and Services here at Alpha Software. And today we're going to be going over the different types of ways that Transform can be used to measure, track, and do calculations with time. But before I get started, I just want to make sure that I am coming through loud and clear. So if someone in the questions box could tell me whether or not they could see my screen and whether or not they can hear me, that would be great. Okay, wonderful. Thanks very much. Appreciate that. All right, so let's get started. I'm going to go ahead and open up a form on my phone. So I'm going to go ahead and, whoops. Let me just open up screen mirroring. Okay, close that, close that. And I can usually do this quickly, except when I'm doing a webinar. Then all of a sudden I'm not as fast. All right, here we go. Here's screen mirroring. All right, and I'm going to open up Alpha TransForm. And I have a form that's open right now. This is a diagnose and repair form, and we're going to talk a lot more about this form in the upcoming sessions because we built out a fairly sophisticated form for doing field service, and it comes with its own backend, and it's something I think you're going to want to see. But anyway, in this particular form, the moment that I opened this form, which was about 3 minutes ago, it actually logged the time in the background. So I'm going to go ahead and click the debug button here. And I'm going to show you that one of my fields, let's pop over to fields, whoops, we have that here, has been set with the time that I first logged in. I'm not seeing that here, but let's go back, and it doesn't actually matter. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click the begin work button. And actually that's probably what, let's try that again, begin work. Okay, there we go. When I clicked the begin work button, you'll notice here that I have now set a field called service date, and service date is equal to today at 13:02. So that happened just right now. It's just a little bit past 1 p.m. today. And later on, when we end the work, we're going to actually do a calculation across those two fields to figure out how long that work took. So let's go ahead and hit close. And I'm going to go down here. Let me just show you a little bit about this this form because it's kind of cool. In this form, you can scan a piece of equipment. I've actually have about 1,000 pieces of equipment in an onboard database. And when I click that particular one, it shows me that this is the particular unit that I'm working on. And it even has a repair video that I can watch for this particular piece of equipment. It also has a checklist. This looks very much like if you're familiar with the Boilerminder application, sort of similar to that. And if I mark any of these to fail, I'm going to be asked a few more questions, specifically what issues were found in the equipment. I'm going to skip over that for now. It also asks about parts and things like that, but I am going to say that the problem was resolved. So I'm going to go ahead and click resolved, boink, and you'll see billable time, it's just popped up here, is 1 minute. So it was 1 minute between the time that I opened the form and the time that I resolved it. Now, if only HVAC people could be that quick, that would be amazing. But this is just an example of how I did some time calculations in there. So let me show you how that was done, because this is a pretty common thing to do. It does use a little bit of the Transform programming language, but only a very little bit. And I'm going to show you how that works in a second. So let me shut off my screen here. And let's pop down into our example. So as a simpler example, let's take a look here at a really simple form. It has a start time, it has an end time, and I just want to know the amount of hours that took place between the two of them. And I can do this with one line of code here using the dateDifference function. And I'm going to show you a little bit more about this function in a moment. But basically, I passed in the start time and the end time, and I told it what kind of units I want to get out the other side. In my previous example, I showed you minutes. This one is measuring it in hours. You can also do days, weeks, I think years are possible, and seconds as well. So let's go take a look at the fields themselves. That was a start field and an end field. But as you put together your own transform forms, you may have noticed that there are different types of things that deal, different field types that deal with time. And so the first 4 lines here represent those different types that you can have. The first type is a date, and date doesn't contain time information whatsoever, but you'll see that it's stored in this format in the underlying JSON. So it's the year, the month, the day. Now this is a date time field. This is the next one. And a date time field stores the date field, but then it has a space and it includes hours and minutes afterwards. And this is a military time or 24-hour time. So instead of AM and PM at the end, it would go to 13, 14, 15, all the way up. The next type is a time now field, which you'll see that's the kind of field where you click a button on the form and it just sets the current time into a time field. You'll see it's stored in exactly the same format in JSON in the back, with the exception of it actually captures the seconds as well. So this first one, this date time field, is the kind that the user sets themselves by using a spinner control. The time now field is set by the user just by clicking a button. So I guess in the date time field example, we didn't want to trouble people with entering both the date, the time, the hours, the minutes, and the seconds, because it probably wouldn't be accurate enough. Another type of form we have is the stopwatch field. And what that returns is once you hit the start button, you hit the stop button, it subtracts the 2 and it gives you the answer in seconds. In this example, it was 13.4 seconds that had gone by. So those are all the different types of field types. Now imagine, though, that you wanted to figure out the distance between 2 times, a start time and an end time. Well, if you look at these are just strings right here. And it looks like actually these would be a couple months apart. This is December and this is October. But you'll see that these are strings. So if you were to just take one and literally subtract it from the other, TPL wouldn't know what to do. What you have to do is you have to instruct TPL that what they're looking at is in fact a date time value, and that when you want to figure out the difference between the two, it needs to know that that's the type of value that's there. So we'll go back to that function called dateDifference. This is a built-in function that you'll find in TPL. And I've passed in hours, meaning I'm interested in calculating the hours between the two. And then I'm passing in 2 fields, start and end. There's my start field, there's my end field. In this case, they are 9 hours apart from each other. So when I use this and I use the property.hours at the end, I think I could do also property.minutes, but I might be wrong about that. I think it's capturing it here, but I'll show you in a second. And that's how that works. So that's all there is to it. Now let's dive in a little bit into that function. This is the documentation for the dateDifference function. And you'll see it's the scope. In that last example, I said hours, but you're allowed to use years, months, weeks, days, hours, minutes, or seconds. Then you could pass in a first date and a second date. Looks like it does work with arrays, but that's a little bit beyond what I'm going to get into at the moment. And then what you get back out the other side is an object. And so this D that you get back at the other side is an object, and it's up to you to apply D.hours or D.weeks or D.minutes to get a number out to let you know what the value was between those two. So I've hopefully made that clear. This single example will probably do it for you. And I'm actually going to paste that into the chat window. Paste. So that is all you need to do to figure out how much time has gone by. All right, so second thing I had to do when I was putting together this application is I wanted to load some records into TransForm using the API. And specifically, I was using Alpha Anywhere as the engine to make those REST calls to add data to TransForm. Now, the problem is that Alpha Anywhere dates and TransForm dates are a little bit different. You can't simply assign an Alpha Anywhere time variable and paste it into TransForm and have it work. It needs to be in a very specific format. So I took it upon myself to write out this function, which I call timeToTransFormTime. And all it does is it takes an X basic variable that has the time in it, and it converts it to a time to the type of string that's required for transform. Now, once I had built this, I had realized this would be pretty useful. So I contacted someone who's, is the in charge of development here, and I said, look, we should probably wrap this into Alpha Anywhere. And he said, that's a great idea, but there's all these lines of code. It was actually much simpler. Let me show you the real answer. All we had to do to convert from XBasic to TransformTime is to use the built-in time function right here, which you specify the time, and you'll get back out a string which will work in transform. This timeToTransformTime is going to appear in the pre-release, I believe, tomorrow if you want to start using it. Otherwise, you can just use this example here, and this is a good example for me to paste into the chat window as well. Let me go ahead and do that. All right. So that is about it for today. It's a short session, not a lot of time. But if you have any questions, that would be a great time to go ahead and type those questions into the questions box of the GoToWebinar control panel. I'll give you a minute. Okay. Can you show how to use an argument when pulling data from transform into a report or something like that in Alpha Anywhere? Just so I understand your question, how do you use an argument pulling data from transform into a report? Are you wanting to run a report against the transform data sets, and you want to just use an argument, say, to filter by time or date or something like that? Or if you could be a little bit more specific in your case, I can probably give you an answer. I'll give you a minute to type that in. Keep in mind, if you do think of a question while I am not giving a webinar, go ahead and send an email to tfservice, as in transform service, at alphasoftware.com. It's monitored by a team of people here, and we're happy to get back to you with an answer. Okay. Oh, I see. You want to, yes, so the API get data for just one record by using an argument. I cannot show that to you today, but I will be happy to give you an example maybe this afternoon by email, and I could show it in the next Transform Tuesday as well. Do we have another question? I think that's about it. Well, I appreciate your time today. Thanks very much, and I hope to catch you at the next Transform Tuesday, which is going to be a week from Tuesday. I'm on vacation next week, but even though I'm on vacation, doesn't mean our team isn't here ready for your questions. Again, you can send them to tfservice@alphasoftware.com. Thanks very much for showing up. Thanks for asking questions, and I hope to see you again soon. Take care, and goodbye.